Welcome to 23 Degrees Sideways. Thought I'd talk just for a moment about Airbnb. I'm at the tail end of an adventure helping some friends out, taking care of theirs. It's been a kind of interesting journey. It could have gotten very much full-time, recommendations to other people, and so on. The problem is that cleaning Airbnbs is actually kind of a fool's bargain. You end up spending an awful lot of time because you have to wait on things to happen. Unless it's actually an apartment complex all owned by the same people, you have to wait forever for things like laundry to dry. The cleaning routines are a little bit crazy because you're dealing with houses. You're not actually dealing with easy hotel rooms. I had one friend who I helped out twice, but she, her setups were just insane, just to dust the way she had everything set up, because she wanted to make everything look special and luxurious and crazy. So just dusting was like a 2-hour job, just literally Swiffer dusting. 4 different kinds of floor surfaces, very weird glossy floor coverings in one area that you can't mop, but you can't wet mop, you can't dry mop, it's bizarre. You end up having to just use a rag and Windex at the end, or it just cannot look good. The bathrooms are not set up right. It's kind of interesting because I know how dirty houses get from my other stuff, doing health and environment research, and it's houses are nasty, and they're not very sanitarily designed, especially in modern Western contexts, because they don't have the airflow or the disposability of parts. It's one thing when you tear out your counters every 3 or 4 years because they're just old and worn. It's another when the crap that gets behind them and in them and soaks in and soaks through lasts for 10, 15, 20 years. Enclosed cabinets are a nightmare for dirt. Just everything. It's kind of crazy, kind of interesting. But the real topic here isn't about the cleanliness. It is a difficult type of thing to do as a job if you care about performance, if you care about cleanliness, if you care about providing. So this friend wants to provide a hypoallergenic environment, but I immediately had to get rid of half the cleansers she had. I'm like, I know people who are allergic to lavender, cherry, citrus scent, which is mostly eucalyptus oil. That would include me. Hypoallergenic and scents doesn't go together. Scents as in SCENTS. It doesn't make sense to have scents. So that was, kind of a thing. If you want to do the work at that level, I think you can do it, but you need to be making $200 or $300 per cleaning, not $100. And then there's other places. I bid on a contract for someone who was doing a clean out for an elderly relative, and I'm like, yeah, $500. And he's like, well, he was all for it, and then he found one of the cleaning companies who had 50 to come clean the house. And all the stuff that we talked about didn't get done at that price range. I was talking about allergy dusting the blinds and unmounting the blinds so you can get up in the top part. Just the stuff. Just regular cruft. We call it cruft in the computer world. Like keyboard chow, And it's interesting. It's been an interesting experience helping out a friend with this. Not something I would want to do for a living. I could, if I was allowed to do it in my fashion and make the money that I budget points. It's, that cheap, good, fast thing. You can have two, except you can't even have two. But it's the same concept. So anyway, talking about this, I realized, because I've now gotten to know a lot of people who are doing Airbnbs, I've stayed at some, and I have a particular way that I engage in staying at an Airbnb. It's not quite that I feel like I'm your guest, but it's pretty close. I try to treat it like a house. I mean, the first thing I do if I'm going to stay at an Airbnb is go in before my primary partner. She can't go in until I've cleared everything out. I have to unplug usually somewhere between 4 and 8 Febreze wall sticks, and if they have lavender, then you just can't stay. Open all the windows, turn on all the fans, turn on whether heater, air conditioner, central fan, anything, and air it out for about an hour, and then we go inside. Most places it's survivable without too much damage at that point. But I try to treat stuff like I'm a guest, but at the same time, I know that someone is going to come clean. Like I'll make sure the counters are wiped down and stuff, but I'm not going to clean the shower. I'm not going to leave any gunk in the shower, but I'm not going to clean the shower. Different stuff. So it's an interesting level. Definitely more care than I would give to a hotel, which is interesting because the cleaning process is generally much more involved than it would be at a hotel. So, but I've seen a lot of people who do very bad things as Airbnb guests who don't really have a whole lot of control over that, and the reputation system doesn't work very well because there's a lot of tit for tat. And you can just make a new account if you trash a place and they don't like you. There's always a way around it. This credit card has your middle name and your first initial instead of your first name and your middle initial, or use your wife's credit card or whatever. There's a lot of ways around it. People trash these things. Sometimes there's people who do what's called a staycation. So they'll stay in town, like where they live, but they'll get a cheap Airbnb for a weekend or a 3-day weekend, like a Memorial Day weekend, or just a random 3-day weekend in the middle of June, how long is it? And they will trash the place. It's just party city for 3 or 4 days. So that happens. But the most interesting part is that neighborhoods have started coming down really hard. It's one thing when you've got an Airbnb where you have a room with a separate entrance, a converted garage, and you rent it out once in a while, someone who's traveling. But it's gone way past that. And it started to have a negative impact on neighborhoods. There are neighborhoods where I have friends who live who don't do Airbnbs and who do Airbnbs. But the neighborhoods have just gone downhill. Like, noise complaints are common. People don't let their kids walk around because there's always someone drunk driving. There's parties. There's just it's not a neighborhood anymore. You live in a commercial district without stability, without any community, and it's gotten pretty bad in some areas. It's definitely decreased the quality of life in some areas. There's one small development right down the street from where you're looking at right now, where some friends of mine live, and the houses aren't even being listed publicly for sale because the people who are selling the houses, long-term residents, want to sell to people who are going to stay and not turn them into Airbnbs. So they're getting premium prices, but they're not putting them on the market with MLS numbers because they're going through a nepotism-based reputational network to sell their houses. Very interesting. Not very good for people trying to break into the market, but very interesting. So people complain to their cities, and the cities respond in typical governmental fashion and put in regulations that add to their pocketbook. So, for example, this town right here, the regulations that are going in involve licensing and taxation. So you have to do some paperwork and throw some money at the government, but they don't actually change anything else. The licensing isn't like a inspection-based thing. It's just you have to register as a business. There's no actual requirement for business license. There's no health inspections. There's nothing. So it's kind of sketchy because the citizens are demanding that the town city council do something. So what the city council does is say, okay, we're gonna make money, and I don't think that's gonna work very well. I think that people are gonna end up trying to just ban these things completely, and you're gonna end up with a crazy quilt patchwork of laws in the U.S. about 30-day or 45-day or 32-day minimum rental periods. So that's going to be entertaining. That's all I got, really. I just wanted to talk about it. I'm finishing up this one right here where I'm visiting for the last time. This is a second friend. And I'm glad this is the end because she's not a sensory person, and this is a horrible place for me to try to breathe. And she's giving up because of the complaints and the fines from her condo association, even though her last couple of rentals have been long term. They were still through Airbnb, but they were more than 30 days, so technically long term. Technically, it's legal above board up. But she can complaints and fines. Yeah. So that's the thing about Airbnb. I think that it's one of those things that has gotten too much abuse, too much misuse, and now the hammer's going to come down a little bit on people. For those of us on the edges who want to do these things informally, that's, I don't know where that goes. We've got one Airbnb that we have stayed at several times, but we only went through Airbnb the first time because we just got to know the people who've been doing it when we're in that area for cash. And that, how do you work that without the Airbnb is the question. We're back to SEO, community, couch surfing, science fiction fandom, travel across the country. Oh, I know you've been on this thing on your couch for a week. We're back to that level. But you want to, interesting. You want to make it easier, but you still want to keep it sane. So I don't know how that's going to work. I don't know how that's going to work out. But the Airbnb era for private single residence condos, single family homes, all of that is crashing down around the ears of a lot of people. So, interesting. Stay sideways.